In this online world, meeting people has never been so easy, but the pitfalls of it have never been so many. So we spoke to local relationship coach Jody Scott on how to avoid some of those pitfalls.
So when women contact me, they're usually in between relationships, maybe coming out of a divorce and just trying to rebuild their life. So they're looking at like, how can I do relationships better? Like, how can I show up in my relationship more empowered, more, clear about what it is that I want, and, not make the same mistakes. Don't get into the same patterns that I've seen to keep cycling through. I don't want to date the same guy again. I just want, to find a healthy relationship.
Right. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the pitfalls now that we're in this internet world. And in particular, there was this site that started on Facebook. Are we dating the same guy? The idea being that helpful information put out for people who might want to know something about that guy. Sometimes, to save them from what could be something really bad.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. It's essentially using crowdsourcing for safety, in terms of online dating for women. So it's like, yes, to be able to maybe get that information about, the catfishers or the predators or the people that aren't, the kind of people that you want to end up
Yeah.
entangled with.
So that's something really useful.
Very useful. Yeah, it's very useful. I've had lots of clients who say it's absolutely essential, really. It's essential to have something like that because you need to do your due diligence when you're online dating. You need to make sure that you're getting as much information, background information about that person as possible because it's not like knowing them in real life. You don't have any reference for them. So you have to do your due diligence to make sure that you are finding out what you need to know about them.
And yet it would seem that this idea that can be so great and save people a lot of misery is actually creating misery as it has become misused, where people, instead of putting out fair warning about something, are just using it because they're in a spiteful mood. So they'll post a name with horrible accusations and a picture and just slather it out there.
For sure. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be misused. The program, that particular Are We, Dating the Same Guy page, they do have moderators. They do have, you have to have firsthand experience. It can only be first name basis, things like that. So they do have some, things that they can do to sort of mitigate that. And they do warn against libel and defamation and those types of things. But that's just the way of the online world. Anyone can go onto their Facebook page or their social media and post defamatory things about people. So that's just
Yeah.
unfortunately the way of the online world.
And there's a reverse one,
Hmm.
are we dating the same girl?
Yes.
And there's some bad stuff there.
For sure. Yeah. It sort of seems like that might have come up, sort of in retaliation. It doesn't have nearly the followers that the Are We Dating the Same Guy pages have. And so I think that really reflects sort of more the need. There's locally with the Okanagan chapter of the Are We Dating the Same Guy? I think there's something like 13,000 followers versus Are We Dating the Same Girl is 1,300. So it kind of shows you where the need is for that information. It's the women really seeking out that information. They need to protect themselves. They need to, and that's what it's designed for. It says to protect women, not judge men or not shame men. It's not their intention. It's just to give women that information.
Right. So, a couple of potential pitfalls. It's so easy to meet people online, but not so easy to really know who they're meeting. So, you still would recommend that people maybe check out that site and do other sort of Google searches on the person?
Absolutely. Like I say, you have to get to know this person as much as you can, and you don't have the ability to reference them in person. So you've got to do, your background check essentially. You got to Google them. You've got to look across their social media channels, look for, details that are consistent with their online dating profile. You have to, check into, that actual page. That might be beneficial just to give
Right.
you some insight as well.
What sort of red flags are you looking for as you're?
Yeah, with red flags, women, you want to look for, inconsistency in their stories, and maybe excuses that don't seem to add up when you're initially, engaging with someone. You want to look for people who don't maybe have a social media channel, or it's very limited, something like that. So they, are keeping things kind of private. If they're online dating, you should actually have social media as well. Those two things sort of go together. And you want to be conscious of people who want to like meet you too quickly. They want to meet in person. They ask you really personal details like your workplace, your address, things like that. You have to be really conscious of that. That's just being smart, and you want to follow always your intuition. Like if your instinct says something's off, you have to respect that.
Wow, a lot to think about. Is there a common mistake that women make?
I would say the most common mistake women make is that they ignore those red flags. They kind of make excuses for it, or they overlook it, they justify it in one way. And I would say, you have to pay attention to the red flags. And I always recommend to my clients, like, take it slow. You will build a deeper connection by taking it slow, and you'll also weed out those people who aren't really interested in a deeper connection. So it's no different than in real life dating. You take it slow, you build a foundation. That's always the key, and it works the same in the online world.
Right. I guess it's an academic question, but is it healthy now? Is it healthier than it was 30 years ago, pre-internet, the whole dating process? Are we better off or worse off?
That's a good question. I wouldn't say, honestly, if I had to think about it, I would say that we're probably better off, because we can get more information today than you could get in the past. I mean, in the past, you dated people in your hometown, so you had a reference for them. You grew up with in the neighborhood. You maybe, knew a sibling or a friend or something like that. So you had a reference for it. In today's world, it's a global world. You don't have that reference. So you do have to have these other tools that you can access to use it. But at the same time, we can also get a lot more information on people than we could get on them before, because even if you did know them from, in person, there's still a lot of things you wouldn't know about them. So, it's still, you have to, use your common sense.
Yeah. I think that this is some great information for people seeking relationships to get a healthy start. But then I suppose we could go on and talk a lot about how to keep a relationship healthy once it's on the go. And we should have you back and ask you about that as well. Would you do that for us?
I'd be happy to do that.
Terrific.
For sure.
Thanks for this.
You're welcome. Thanks, Kent.